Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about petty cash and cash over and short. First of all, sometimes a business will set up a petty cash fund so they can use that for small cash expenditures without having to write checks. For example, you might have a petty cash fund set up in your office to use to go buy donuts in the morning for the staff meeting. It just makes it a little bit easier. Then when you buy the donuts, you bring back the receipt, and at the end of each month, the person that controls the petty cash is going to count it to make sure that the amount of cash left, subtracted from your beginning cash, equals what you have in receipts. If not, you're going to have a cash short and over, and occasionally that will happen. You also have to replenish that cash back up to its beginning balance at the beginning of each month after all of the expenditures. So let's take a look at some examples here. Let's say you want to set up a petty cash fund for $1,000. Petty cash is just going to be a current asset just like cash. So you debit petty cash and you credit or take it out of cash for $1,000. Now, when you're doing business, you probably have a cash register and you probably write receipts. So let's say that your cash register showed a total of $9,440 for the day, but when you counted your cash drawer, it had $9,506. They didn't balance out. You want to debit cash and credit sales, just like you learned way back in Chapter 2. However, since they don't balance, you have to take the difference. And to get it to balance out, you need another credit of $66. So therefore, we'll just put that to cash short and over. Now, being a credit, that represents that your cash was long, which makes sense here because you had a little bit more in cash than you did in sales. Down here, the opposite happens. You have $13,350 in your cash drawer, but your sales tickets or your cash register tape showed $13,390. So therefore, to get it to balance out, you needed another debit of $40 for both sides to equal $13,390. Now, since that's a debit, that's going to be cash short, but it still goes to the same account, cash short and over. So notice the cash was less than the sales, so a debit entry would represent a cash short. Now, let's go back to petty cash. At the end of each month, you have to look at your receipt and you debit the expenditures or the asset account for which you use that cash to purchase. Okay, so let's say we bought store supplies of $375, merchandise inventory $215, office supplies of $208, miscellaneous expenses were paid of $134. Now, keep in mind that could be more than one receipt to store supplies. You'll see that happen in some of your homework problems. You could just add them together to do one debit to store supplies. If you have like 3 receipts to merchandise inventory, you can add them together and do one debit as I did here for $215. Now, the next thing I will tell you is how much cash is left in your petty cash drawer. So you will count your petty cash drawer, and you might determine then that the amount of cash left was only $46. You remember your beginning balance was $1,000. So 1,000 minus 46, if you counted your drawer, you only had $46. You need to get your drawer back up to 1,000 at the beginning of the month. So therefore, no matter how much your receipts add up to, you have to credit cash for $954. You don't need to do an entry to petty cash again. Now, these receipts here do not add up to $954 when you add those 4 together. In fact, I'll do it to the side here. Oh, I did it in the wrong place. Excuse me here. Let me do it to the side right here. Those receipts added up to $932. So that's why I have another $22 to get me to $954. So I took $932 minus $954. I need another debit of $22. Apparently I gave too much change back or somebody didn't bring a receipt back, but I put it to cash short and over. just like I did for my cash drawer itself. That way it balances out. Now, if you decide that you want to put more or less into your petty cash fund, for example, here they decided they wanted to decrease it to $800. So therefore, they debited cash, put it back into cash, and credited petty cash for $200. If they decided they wanted to increase the petty cash fund, that entry would just be reversed. They would have debited cash and credited petty cash. Thank you very much.